In today's video, I want to talk to you guys about spinnerbait fishing. And I want to talk to you guys about something that I learned a long time ago that reared its ugly head just a few days ago while I was out on the kayak fishing. And what's fascinating about this is it's something that can happen any time of year, because any time of year it can get really sunny outside and it can affect the type of spinnerbait that you need to be fishing. And so let's get into this. So the other day I was out on the river. I was actually throwing this specific spinnerbait right here. This poor thing, it's all beat to hell because spotted bass were absolutely smacking the piss out of it. And what was happening is those bass were running through the blades of that spinnerbait. So literally I'd be reeling that spinnerbait in and they would try to bite the blades instead of actually biting the spinnerbait itself, and I wouldn't get a hook into those fish. Because a lot of the times with a spinnerbait, I mean, you're going to hook almost every single fish that bites just because of the nature of the bait and the nature of the way that they eat it. But I learned this a long time ago about them running through the blades. And what actually happened was you just throw your spinnerbait out there and you start reeling it back. And this again was on a really sunny day. What would happen is you would just get thumped. You'd set the hook and nothing. You'd come back, spinnerbait would be fine, no fish, but you were absolutely getting destroyed. And then I threw it out there another time, reeled it all the way back to the boat, and I saw what happened. Bass came up with pinpoint accuracy, grabbed the blades of that spinnerbait and actually ripped one of my spinnerbait blades off. And that's when I realized that the bass were keying in on the blades specifically, which makes a ton of sense because when you think about a bass eating bait fish, they kind of just blow through them. And sometimes there's some accuracy on the ones that they pick out and eat, especially if it's like big individual bait fish. But a lot of times, like the one they're eating thread fins or alewives or those sorts of things, you get big conglomerates of those fish, and what'll happen is the bass will just run through them and get as many as they can in one shot. And when you've got the flash of those blades, the thump of those blades and all those different things, those bass will key in on that specifically and just totally whiff on the skirt, and they go for the blades. And so we started adjusting. We were trying to figure out what we needed to do to make our spinnerbait more effective, and there was two things that we came up with that made it just a lot better, got a lot more fish in the boat, and turned a lot of those fish that were eating blades into fish that were eating the spinnerbait itself and getting a hook in their mouth. The first thing was just simply adjusting the skirt color. We went from a straight white to a white, chartreuse, and blue, white, chartreuse, and black, just something with some contrast in it. It didn't have to be anything crazy. It just had to contrast a little bit better than the straight white did, because a lot of the times I think when you have that white with the chrome of the blades and just all of that's moving, that the bass is going to kind of key in on the shiniest, most obvious thing, the thing that contrasts the most. And when it's high bluebird skies, when there's a lot of bait fish around, those chrome blades do a really good job of throwing light and contrasting, and they'll run through those instead of actually getting the skirt. Whereas if you get a skirt that's got a little bit of contrast in. I mean, you guys can see it's got a little bit of blue, the white, the chartreuse on top. Those contrasting colors keep those bass from keying in directly on the blades, and they go for the actual body of the spinnerbait, and you get a hook in their mouth. Slight adjustment, and in the scenario that I was talking about years ago, it really did put a lot of fish in the boat. The next one is simply throwing painted blade spinnerbaits. Now, there's a few companies out there that make painted blades for their spinnerbaits. It's something that I've used a lot. I've had a ton of success with, again, especially on super bright sunny days. It seems a little counterintuitive, but it's only when they're running through those blades, when they're trying to eat the blades in particular, those painted blade spinnerbaits kind of mute the shine and the flash that those blades throw off, and it makes those fish keying on more on the skirt, and you'll get a fish that actually eats the actual body of the spinnerbait versus eating the blades of the spinnerbait. So, small, quick adjustment that you guys can make on the fly while you're out on the water with your spinnerbait to put more fish in the boat and the kayak. And if you want to see some spinnerbait fishing in action, click this video. It's popping up right here.